Jack Miller stood at the entrance of Station Prima, home to the Galactic Academy of Sciences, watching the stream of alien students flow past him. The artificial gravity felt strange under his feet, too light and bouncy, like walking on a trampoline. The air tasted wrong too clean, too filtered, lacking Earth's rich mixture of ocean spray and forest pollen. A mechanical voice echoed through the station's pristine white halls. All new students, please proceed to Orientation Hall B7 for registration and species classification. Jack adjusted his backpack, a sturdy old thing made of canvas and leather that stood out sharply against the sleek synthetic bags carried by others. He couldn't help but notice how the other students moved, graceful and delicate, products of their low-gravity worlds. In the orientation hall, registration booths lined the walls, each marked with different planetary classification numbers. Jack checked his documentation and headed for booth 12, reserved for extreme environment species. The blue-skinned administrator looked up at him with 4 eyes, all of which widened in shock. "There must be some mistake," the administrator said, voice trembling slightly. "This booth is for Deathworld species." "No mistake," Jack replied, sliding his Earth documentation across the counter. "I'm from Earth." The administrator's hands shook as they processed his paperwork. Around them, conversation died as nearby students turned to stare. Jack heard whispers ripple through the crowd. "Earth? The Class 12 Deathworld." A tall student with crystalline skin took 3 steps back, nearly bumping into others. But they told us Earth humans were just stories, horror tales to scare children." Jack tried not to smile. He'd been warned about this reaction, but experiencing it firsthand was something else entirely. The orientation room suddenly felt like one of those nature documentaries where a lion walks into a herd of gazelles. "Please proceed to medical screening," the administrator said, handing back his documents. "They'll need to verify your environmental tolerances." The medical bay was even more interesting. The doctor, a being that looked like a cross between an octopus and a tree, kept running the same tests over and over. "This can't be right," they muttered, waving a scanner over Jack's chest. "You're saying you regularly endure temperature swings of over 40 degrees in a single day?" "That's pretty normal where I'm from," Jack said. "You should see what happens when a cold front moves in." The doctor's branches trembled. "And these readings, your bones, they're dense enough to withstand multiple gravities." "Well, yeah, Earth's gravity is pretty strong compared to most places." "And your immune system?" The doctor paused, studying the readings. "It's incredibly aggressive, almost like it's expecting to be attacked constantly." Jack shrugged. "Earth has a lot of things that can make you sick. You adapt." After medical screening came the classroom assignments. Jack found himself in advanced xenobiology, surrounded by students from what they called paradise worlds, planets where technology had eliminated most natural threats generations ago. His classmates kept stealing glances at him when they thought he wasn't looking. One student, who introduced herself as Ruby, actually dared to sit next to him. She came from a low-gravity world with perpetual spring weather, but unlike the others, her curiosity seemed stronger than her fear. "Is it true," she whispered as their instructor droned on about class requirements, "that Earth has these things called storms where water falls from the sky?" "That's called rain," Jack explained. "And sometimes the water freezes into ice crystals called snow." Ruby's silver eyes grew wide. "And you just survive this?" "We do more than survive," Jack said, thinking of ski resorts and water parks. "We find ways to have fun with it." The look of absolute disbelief on Ruby's face almost made him laugh. But he held it in, remembering his briefing about not scaring his classmates. Still, as he settled into his first day at the academy, Jack couldn't help but wonder what these students would think if they knew about Earth's really dangerous stuff, like mosquitoes or Monday morning traffic. 2 weeks into the semester, Professor Moss entered the survival training classroom with news that made most students gasp in horror. "Class, prepare yourselves. Next week, we'll be conducting our first practical exercise on planet Rigel 7, a Class 3 environment. Jack looked up from his datapad with interest. Around him, students from various paradise worlds were already showing signs of panic. Some had their environmental suits out, checking and double-checking the seals. Others were frantically searching the galactic database for information about Class 3 worlds. "This is impossible," a student with glowing skin whispered. "The gravity there is 1.2 times standard. We'll be crushed." Jack bit his lip to hide his smile. Earth's gravity was 1.8 times the galactic standard. To him, Rigel 7 would feel like a vacation. Professor Moss continued, his crystalline form shimmering under the classroom lights. "You will each need to prepare a survival kit. The exercise will last 3 standard days. Here are the environmental conditions you should expect." A hologram appeared in the center of the room, displaying weather patterns and atmospheric data. Jack studied it with mild amusement. Temperature range: 15 to 30 degrees Celsius. Atmospheric pressure: 0.9 standard. Occasional light precipitation. Ruby, who had become something of a friend over the past 2 weeks, leaned over to Jack. "This is terrible. How will we survive such extreme variations?" "It'll be fine," Jack whispered back. "Where I'm from, this would be perfect camping weather." "Camping?" Ruby's silver eyes widened. "You mean you voluntarily sleep outdoors?" "On Earth?" "Sure. It's fun. We roast marshmallows, tell stories around the fire." "Fire?" Another student turned around in horror. "You willingly create fire for entertainment." Professor Moss cleared his throat. "If you're all done discussing Earth's unique cultural practices, let's talk about proper survival gear." The next hour was spent reviewing what the professor considered essential equipment. The list grew longer and longer. Portable air filters, gravity compensators, temperature regulators, emergency shelters, water purifiers, food synthesizers, medical units, and more. Jack looked at his own list. He had written down tent, sleeping bag, water bottle, matches, basic first aid kit, and snacks. Maybe a rain jacket, just to be polite. When it came time to present their planned survival kits for approval, most students needed anti-grav units just to lift their packed gear. Jack walked up with his old Earth backpack, half empty. Professor Moss stared at the bag. "Mr. Miller, there seems to be a mistake. Where is your emergency equipment?" "This is it, sir," Jack said. "Standard Earth camping gear." But where's your atmospheric processor?" "Don't need one. Rigel 7's air is thinner than Earth's. It'll be like camping in the mountains." "Temperature regulator." "Got a jacket if it gets chilly." "Emergency shelter." Jack patted his small tent bag. "Right here. Sets up in 5 minutes." The professor's crystalline surface flickered with what Jack had learned was their species' version of confusion. "And you believe this is adequate?" "Well," Jack said thoughtfully, "I could bring a deck of cards. Sometimes it rains, and you need something to do in the tent." The classroom had gone completely silent. Students were staring at him with a mixture of horror and fascination. Ruby was the first to speak. "Jack," she said slowly, "remember when you told me about Earth's rain last week? You said it was just water falling from the sky. But now you're saying you stay out in it. On purpose?" "Sure," Jack replied. "As long as there's no lightning, it's not a big deal." "Lightning?" Professor Moss's voice cracked slightly. "You mean atmospheric electrical discharges?" "Yeah, those are pretty cool to watch too, but you have to be careful about." "Thank you, Mr. Miller," Professor Moss interrupted quickly. That's enough for today. Class dismissed. And please, everyone, stick to the approved equipment list. Except you, Mr. Miller. You may pack whatever you feel is appropriate for your species' requirements." As the students filed out, Jack heard the professor muttering something about updating the curriculum to include more information about Deathworld survival techniques. He shouldered his light pack, grinning. This was going to be an interesting field trip. The shuttle hummed quietly as it carried the survival class toward Rigel 7. Most students were huddled in their seats, triple-checking their environmental suits and emergency gear. The cargo hold was stuffed with enough survival equipment to stock a small colony. Jack sat comfortably in his regular clothes, flipping through pictures on his personal device. Ruby, who had chosen to sit next to him, despite warnings from her classmates, peered over his shoulder. "What's that brown creature?" she asked, pointing to one of the images. "That's a bear," Jack said. This was from a camping trip in Montana last summer. A student with scales like opals turned around in his seat. "You have predators on your camping trips." "Sometimes," Jack shrugged. "You just have to store your food properly and make noise while you hike. Most bears prefer to avoid humans." "Most bears," another student squeaked. Before Jack knew it, half the class had gathered around his seat, their fear of him temporarily overcome by curiosity about Earth. He scrolled through more pictures, explaining each one. "This is a thunderstorm approaching across the plains," he said, showing a photo of dark clouds and lightning. "You can see for miles, so you usually have time to find shelter." "What happens if you don't find shelter?" Ruby asked. "Well, you might get wet, or if you're really unlucky, struck by lightning. And humans survive this." The opal-scaled student shook his head in disbelief. "Sure. We even have sports where we chase storms to study them." Professor Moss, who had been pretending not to listen, dropped his datapad. "You chase these electrical atmospheric disturbances, voluntarily." Jack nodded. "Some people make a career of it. Storm chasers help warn others about dangerous weather." He flipped to another picture. "This is from winter break. We went skiing in the Alps." "What is skiing?" asked a student with feathers. "You strap smoothboards to your feet and slide down mountains covered in snow." The silence that followed was broken only by the shuttle's engine hum. "Let me understand this," Professor Moss said slowly. "You climb to high altitudes, where the air is thin and temperatures are below freezing, then intentionally slide down at high speed." "Yeah, it's really fun. My sister broke her leg doing it last year, but she was back on the slopes a few months later." Several students looked like they might faint. "What about these?" Ruby pointed to another picture, perhaps trying to change the subject. "Oh, that's surfing at the beach. You ride waves in the ocean." "You mean you willingly enter large bodies of water?" A jellyfish-like student pulsed with anxiety. "With currents and sea creatures. The sharks usually lead you alone," Jack said helpfully. Professor Moss cleared his throat loudly. "Perhaps we should focus on our upcoming exercise instead of Earth's recreational activities." But the students had more questions. They asked about earthquakes. "You just dive under a table." "Tornadoes. The basement is safest." And something that particularly horrified them: Earth's spicy food. "You mean you eat chemicals that cause pain?" The opal-scaled student looked ill. "For enjoyment. Hot peppers aren't that bad," Jack protested. "They add flavor. Besides, some of them have health benefits." Ruby shook her head in wonder. "I'm starting to understand why Earth is classified as it is. Everything there seems designed to kill you." "It's not that bad," Jack said. "Humans are pretty good at adapting. We've learned to live with it all. And even have fun with it." "Fun," Professor Moss muttered. "They call atmospheric electrical discharges and predator encounters fun." The shuttle's pilot announced they were beginning their descent to Rigel 7. As the other students rushed to do final equipment checks, Jack glanced out the window at the planet below. With its gentle hills and calm weather, it reminded him of a mild spring day in his hometown. He decided not to mention that Earth's weather could change faster than their shuttle could land. Some things, he was learning, were better left unsaid. The moment the shuttle landed on Rigel 7, chaos erupted among the students. Despite the planet's mild conditions, several of them activated their environmental suits before the doors even opened. Jack watched as they struggled with their oversized packs of survival gear. "Remember," Professor Moss announced, You have 3 days to demonstrate basic survival skills. Each team must build a shelter, find safe water, and maintain proper environmental readings. Jack stepped out of the shuttle and took a deep breath. The air was clean and crisp, like a perfect autumn morning on Earth. Around him, other students were checking their air quality monitors and adjusting their breathing filters. "This is actually really nice," he said to Ruby, who had bravely decided to be his partner. She had compromised by wearing only a light environmental suit instead of the heavy-duty one she'd originally planned. "Nice." She looked at him through her protective visor. "The gravity is crushing me." Jack picked up both their packs with ease. "Come on, I see a good spot for camp near that grove of trees." While other teams struggled with their complex shelter-building equipment, Jack had their tent up in minutes. He showed Ruby how to secure the corners and create proper drainage in case of rain. "But what about predators?" she asked, watching him work. A distant howl echoed through the trees, making the other students jump. "Sounds smaller than a wolf," Jack said casually. "Probably not interested in us, but we can build a fire to be safe." "A fire? Here?" "Sure, it's a basic survival skill." Jack gathered some wood and arranged it carefully. "Want to learn how?" Ruby watched in fascination as Jack demonstrated how to build and light a campfire. Soon, other students began drifting over to their camp, drawn by the warmth and light. Professor Moss made notes on his datapad, watching Jack teach the others basic Earth survival skills. How to find north using stars, which berries looked safe to eat, how to tie proper knots. "But what about your environmental controls?" one student asked, pointing at their complex equipment. "Don't really need them," Jack explained. "The temperature's perfect for camping, though we might want a rain shelter later." Those clouds looked like they're building up. As if on cue, a light drizzle began to fall. The other students panicked, rushing to activate their weather shields. Ruby stayed put under the tarp Jack had strung up, watching the rain with cautious curiosity. "It's just water," Jack assured her. "Actually helps keep the dust down. And look, you can see a rainbow forming." The next challenge came during their water-finding exercise. While other teams relied on their high-tech purifiers, Jack showed them how to find a natural spring. He explained how running water was often safer than standing water, and demonstrated basic filtration using sand and cloth. "On Earth," he explained while demonstrating, "we have to watch out for much more dangerous things in water. Bears fishing for salmon, alligators in the swamps." "What's an alligator?" someone asked. "Kind of like that creature over there." Jack pointed to a small lizard-like animal sunning itself on a rock, but about 20 times bigger, with lots of teeth. The students shuffled closer to the fire after that. As night fell, Jack taught them how to keep watch in shifts, though it was hardly necessary on such a mild planet. He showed them how to bank the fire to keep it going through the night, and even convinced a few brave souls to try roasting some local fruits he'd found. Professor Moss observed it all, making detailed notes in his report. Subject displays remarkable adaptability and natural survival instincts. More significantly, shows ability to teach others. Recommend updating curriculum to incorporate Earth survival techniques. Under the strange stars of Rigel 7, Jack felt oddly at home. The familiar weight of responsibility, the need to watch out for others. It reminded him of leading hiking groups back on Earth. He just hoped none of his classmates ever had to try camping in grizzly country. Some Earth survival lessons were probably best left for advanced classes. Back at Station Prima after the successful survival exercise, life seemed to return to normal. Jack sat in advanced xenobiology class, listening to a lecture about adaptation to different planetary conditions. Ruby, no longer wearing any protective gear around him, took notes nearby. The first sign of trouble was subtle, a slight temperature change that made Jack's Earth-trained senses tingle. He noticed it before the station's systems even sent out an alert. "Something's wrong," he muttered to Ruby. Moments later, the station's lights flickered. The professor's holographic display wavered and died. Then came the announcement that made everyone freeze. Attention all residents. Station Prima is experiencing environmental control malfunctions. Please remain calm and proceed to designated safety zones. The temperature dropped another degree. Other students began to shiver, their bodies unused to any environmental fluctuation. Panic started to spread as more systems failed. The backup systems aren't responding, someone shouted from the hallway. Main engineering is sealed off due to a containment breach. Jack stood up, his mind already running through Earth survival scenarios. This was just like that time his hometown lost power during a winter storm. Except in space. Everyone listen up. His voice cut through the growing chaos. We need to gather in smaller groups to conserve heat. Ruby, help me push these desks together. Students who had once feared him now looked to him for guidance. Jack quickly organized them into groups, remembering his winter survival training. Take off those environmental suits, he ordered when some students reached for their gear. They're powered by the station's systems. Right now, body heat is more reliable. He demonstrated how to sit close together, sharing warmth like emperor penguins. When the artificial gravity began to fluctuate, he showed them how to brace themselves using techniques learned from rock climbing. The air processors are failing, Professor Moss announced, his crystalline form clouding with worry. We have maybe 2 hours of clean air left. We don't need the processors running at full power, Jack said. Earth's forests produce enough oxygen for billions of people. The station's greenhouse section can keep us going if we reduce our activity levels. He organized teams to check the greenhouse, sending them with clear instructions about measuring plant health and maintaining proper ventilation. His experience with Earth's varying oxygen levels at different altitudes helped him calculate what they needed. The temperature kept dropping. Jack taught them exercises to stay warm without using too much oxygen. He showed them how to identify signs of hypothermia, knowledge every Earth hiker needed to have. How do you know all this? Ruby asked as she helped him distribute emergency supplies. On Earth, you have to be ready for anything, Jack explained, rigging up a manual air circulation system using principles he'd learned from cave exploration. Nature doesn't care about your backup systems. Hours passed. The station's engineering team worked desperately to restore power. Jack kept the students calm by sharing stories of Earth survival situations, each one more incredible to alien ears than the last. You mean humans regularly survive without environmental controls? A student asked in disbelief. We call it camping, Jack grinned. Or sometimes Tuesday in Minnesota. When the engineers finally reached the environmental control room, Jack's knowledge of manual mechanical systems, considered primitive by galactic standards, helped them bypass the failed automated controls. As the station's systems gradually came back online, Professor Moss approached Jack with a new respect in his crystalline eyes. Mr. Miller, he said slowly, I believe we've been looking at Earth's primitive conditions all wrong. What we saw as disadvantages, they're actually sophisticated survival adaptations. Jack smiled, thinking of all the times Earth's harsh conditions had forced humans to innovate and adapt. Sometimes, he said, the best technology is knowing how to survive without it. The station emergency changed everything. Students who once avoided Jack now crowded around him in the cafeteria, eager to learn more about Earth survival techniques. His usual table, once occupied by just him and Ruby, now needed extra chairs. Tell us more about these natural disasters you mentioned, said the opal-scaled student, who Jack now knew as Beam. How do humans prepare for them? Jack pulled out his datavat, showing them images of Earth emergency kits. Every home has one of these. Food, water, basic medical supplies. But where are the environmental regulators? Someone asked. We can't always count on technology, Jack explained. Sometimes you have to work with what nature gives you. Ruby, who had become something of an expert in translating between Earth concepts and galactic understanding, added, it's like having manual backups for everything. The conversation was interrupted by Professor Moss, who approached their table with an unusual request. "Mr. Miller, the Academy Board would like your help in redesigning our survival training curriculum." Jack blinked in surprise. "They want my help." After the recent incident, they've realized that depending solely on technology has limitations. The professor's crystalline form shimmered with what Jack now recognized as embarrassment. "We'd like to incorporate some Earth survival principles." Word spread quickly through the station. Soon, Jack wasn't just helping his classmates. Students from other departments began asking for lessons. He started informal classes in the station's recreation area, teaching basic survival skills. "The key is understanding your environment," Jack explained to a group of fascinated students. "On Earth, we learn to read weather patterns, terrain, and natural signs." He showed them how to tie basic knots, a skill that proved surprisingly useful in zero-gravity environments. He taught them how to navigate without electronic aids, using stars and natural landmarks. Most importantly, he helped them understand that technology should enhance survival skills, not replace them. "But isn't Earth technology primitive?" asked a new student. Ruby laughed. "We thought so too, at first. But Earth tech is different. It's designed to work with nature, not just control it." The Academy Board took notice. They began documenting Earth's unique approach to survival and technology. Jack's stories about Earth's various environments, from scorching deserts to frozen tundras, became case studies in adaptation and resilience. During one session, Jack taught them about Earth's oceans. "We have ships designed to handle waves taller than this station," he explained. "But we also teach sailors old techniques, like reading clouds and wind patterns." "Is that why Earth ships have manual controls?" Professor Moss asked, taking notes. "We always thought it was inefficient." "Manual controls can't be hacked," Jack pointed out, "and they work even when power fails." The professor's crystalline surface flickered thoughtfully. "Perhaps we've been measuring advancement wrong. We thought removing ourselves from nature meant progress. But Earth learned to work with it." In the station's greenhouse, now maintained using both high-tech sensors and basic Earth gardening principles, Jack helped students understand plant care. "Life on Earth taught us that sometimes simpler is better. These plants don't need complex nutrient dispensers, just good soil, water, and attention." As the semester progressed, Jack noticed a profound change in how his classmates viewed Earth. What they once saw as a primitive death world, they now recognized as a training ground for resilience and innovation. "You know," Ruby said one day, watching Jack teach a group how to purify water using basic materials, "I think I understand now why Earth humans are the way they are. Your planet didn't just make you strong, it taught you to be ready for anything." Jack smiled, remembering his home world's endless challenges and surprises. "That's the thing about Earth," he said. "It never stops teaching you how to survive."
Jack Carter, a young student from Earth, stepped into the gleaming halls of the Galactic Academy for Interstellar Relations. Earth had only recently joined the galactic community, and its reputation as a death world preceded it. Many alien species, hailing from more temperate and predictable home planets, regarded Earthlings with a mix of awe and trepidation. To them, humans were survivors of a planet fraught with predators, natural disasters, and an environment that seemed to conspire against life. Jack, however, wasn't here to perpetuate those fears. He had come to learn and share, carrying with him a lifetime of stories about Earth's beauty and its challenges. Despite the stares and whispers from his alien peers, he immersed himself in his studies. The Academy's curriculum ranged from diplomacy to survival training, and Jack's Earth-hardened instincts quickly shone in the latter. The turning point came during a survival simulation class led by Professor Moss, a venerable elder of the Cerulean species. The simulation recreated an artificial environment where students had to navigate unpredictable terrain, build shelters, and find food. For most, it was a daunting challenge. For Jack, it felt like a summer camp on Earth. While his classmates fumbled with tools, Jack calmly demonstrated techniques he'd learned back home: making fire, purifying water, and crafting shelters from the sparse materials provided. At first, his peers watched in skeptical silence. But as Jack's methods consistently succeeded, curiosity replaced their hesitation. Ruby, a feathered Avarian student, approached Jack one evening and asked for help with her shelter. That moment marked the beginning of a cultural exchange. Soon, Jack was leading impromptu lessons, teaching others the value of Earth's hard-earned survival skills. The ripple effect was undeniable. Jack's classmates began incorporating his techniques into their routines, and the Academy itself took notice. By the end of the semester, the Galactic Council requested a demonstration of Jack's methods, recognizing their potential to save lives across the galaxy. The change wasn't one-sided. Jack, too, learned from his classmates. He gained an appreciation for the structured elegance of alien problem-solving and their ability to approach challenges with calm precision. The once intimidating label of Deathworld became a point of pride, a symbol of Earth's unique contribution to the galactic community. The final validation came during the Academy's annual cultural exchange ceremony. Students from every species shared aspects of their heritage, and Jack took the stage to talk about Earth's resilience. He described thunderstorms as both terrifying and beautiful, explained the ingenuity behind mosquito nets, and recounted the thrill of Earth's unpredictable wilderness. When Jack concluded, the audience rose in applause. It was a moment of unity, a reminder that despite their differences, every species brought something valuable to the table. For Jack, it was a testament to humanity's adaptability and the power of collaboration. In the years to come, Earth-inspired techniques would become a staple in survival training across the galaxy. And though humanity's reputation as a species from a death world endured, it was no longer a cause for fear. It was a mark of ingenuity, perseverance, and hope. Jack Carter had proven that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its ability to survive, but its ability to inspire.